find my strength. Ain't nobody man enough to feel the pain. And you could be next, you better give respect. Cause ain't nobody breaking this redneck, no.
Ooh, what is going on, everybody? You got Matty Brollic here, and I am back, ladies and gentlemen, with a brand new laptop. Let's go. I can finally start pumping out some content nice and easy. Really gonna make my life a lot easier. And if you're wondering what that crazy intro was, I am about to explain, because I have a treat for you all today. A video that I'm pretty excited to make. It is my run through the Pokemon Draft League Summer Olympics of 2017. Now, if you have not heard of that, it was actually created by K to the 2, otherwise known as Kyle. He's a really well-known player in the draft format who actually created the National Pokeball League back in the day. And he stuck around and played in a bunch of leagues ever since, and he's always done really well. And he decided that it would be a cool idea to gather just a lot of different draft players from around the world, a lot of the more well-known and highly regarded ones, to team up based on where they're from, location-wise, or where they're born, or what their ethnicity is, and play against one another in a big Olympic-style tournament, which I think is a fantastic idea because it's really similar to Smogon's World Cup of Pokemon, which is a team tournament that is kind of cool because it just groups everyone based on their location, ethnicity, and whatnot, and puts them against one another for country pride and national pride, things like that, which is definitely kind of a fun deal. I'm not a big fan of Smogon tournaments, but I do play in that one, and it's kind of cool. And I think this is really cool as well, especially because it's interesting for two reasons. Now, number one, obviously, it's kind of similar to Smogon tiering, where there's different events, just like an Olympics would have. So there was Gen 7 free draft, Gen 7 price draft, and Gen 7 speed draft, because Gen 7 right now is the current generation, so it's definitely going to be favored right now over Gen 6, where the draft format started. But then there's also a Gen 6 draft meta tier as well. So those 4 tiers, and there's 4 starters per team based on where you're from, for example. So I was on Team US East, accompanied by some very big names in Sceptile MC, Monotui, Under the Radar, and then we had Razor Wolf as our backup. And I was placed in the free draft tier for Generation 7, which I guess is probably my best. I would say either free draft or price draft. I think I'm fine in either one, but speed draft is something I've never actually done. I've never done a speed draft. And I think 6th gen I'm good with, but right now I'm in the current Gen 7 mindset, and I think I've never been better in Gen 7 as opposed to Gen 6, so I would say that Gen 7 is probably a little bit of a better place for me than Gen 6. So that is pretty cool, and another reason I really like this idea is because not only is it a team tournament where you have a chance to win a championship as a team, but you also have a chance to win an individual gold medal or a championship for yourself, which I think is kind of cool because if your team doesn't do well, at least it gives you the chance to win a championship, and if you don't do as well, then at least it gives your team still a chance to win a championship in which you could contribute. So I think that's pretty cool and pretty fun, whereas like something like World Cup, yeah, you can go undefeated or something like that, but it's no like individual titles or medals or anything like that. So that's why I think this is pretty cool. And it just seemed like a fun thing. It seemed like a lot of guys just kind of getting paired up without, even coming together and doing it themselves. They just were kind of put that way because that's where they're from, and they just kind of team up and go from there and try to do the best for their area or location. So, like I said, I was part of US East, but going back to what I was saying about winning, for yourself or winning for your team, it's funny because I'm going to teach you guys a quick lesson about drafting a good team versus drafting not such a good team. So, if any of you have been watching my current NPL run, you would know that, so far of what I've uploaded, I'm 1-3, and in some of those games, I had pretty solid chances to win, but, whether it was hacks or hacks plus matchup being difficult, it was really tough because my team is not a very good team by any means. It was drafted to be somewhat of a meme team that is going to be tough for me to use, but it would be really funny if I could win with it. So that is a lot different because I could play perfectly, I could prep really well, and I could still just get hacked a little bit or just have a really tough matchup to the point where there's not much or anything I could do. So this is a situation where it's not just an individual thing. I have to play well for my team if my team wants a chance to win the gold medals. So I went out of my way to draft a way more try-hard team than usual, and it just goes to show that when you draft a good team, this game becomes considerably easier. So I'm going to show you guys everyone's team a little bit. Here we have Potato Jimmy's from Ireland. Here we have the Bee's Knees, who is US South. We have Gleber from Germany. We have Shroomraver from Wales. We have Kyle from US Midwest. He's K to the 2, the one who created the event. We have me over here. I'll get back to me in a second. Then we have Jack Eastorm from Australia. We have Makati, who is from England. We have Turkey from Canada. Uzi from Bangladesh, and then Chime from Portugal, and Gregulator from US West. So I believe those are all of the teams in the whole tournament, because the free draft had the most participants, so I would imagine there was someone from every team in the free draft, or at least almost every single team, because there were a couple that only had maybe 1 or 2 guys on there, and they just wanted to kind of get in this anyway to fill some spots, but for the most part, we had pretty much every team being represented in the free draft. But how this worked is that Kyle put us all into pools, so there are 6 people here, so there's 2 pools of 6, and I'm put into a pool with 5 other opponents, and basically you play in your pool, the top 2 people move on, and then play in a semifinals and finals match to determine who gets what title or medal. So here is my team over here. I went with Zygarde 50% first because I really wanted to use this Pokemon and give it a shot, because it really is something that, it's a Pokemon that could do a lot, and even despite you know, how much it could do, it's still really good at a few things. Like, for example, it's a great choice banded Pokemon because it hits very hard with a nice and reliable 1,000 arrows that nothing is immune to. So that is really nice, and it's got a really nice banded extreme speed, which is an awesome priority to have, especially with the type of team that I have. And Zygarde could just do a lot. It could run really bulky sets that allow it to set up on so many different things. It can lure a lot of different things with its nice coverage and support moves, and all around it really is a pretty nice Pokemon to build a team around. I don't know if it's necessarily a first round pick, especially where I picked it. I picked it maybe like 6th or 7th, but it could definitely be a first round pick in like a 16-person draft for sure. I think this was 12 people. I think in a 12-person draft, it doesn't have to be first round, but it's definitely up there. It's a great Pokemon, and I really just wanted to give it a try. And I figured next is a Pokemon that I am pretty familiar with at this point, and I know it goes really well with Zygarde. I decided to go with Thunderous Eye because it could break a lot of the bulky waters and grass types that Zygarde kind of struggles with its nice coverage and flying typing, especially with the use of Z moves. Then next, I wanted to go Tyranitar because I really love Tyranitar. It's one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, and I used it in my very first Draft League season, and it did a lot of work back then, despite me being very inexperienced. It was my first Draft League season, like I said. I was still, a seasoned Smogon player, but I still was very new to the format. So the fact that Tyranitar did that well back then made me want to use it again, especially because, like I said, it's one of my favorite Pokemon, so I just really enjoy using my favorites. Then next, I went with Azumarill. I think that Azumarill is an awesome Pokemon, and I haven't used it in Gen 7 yet. I used it back in Gen 6 for a League War, and I actually really did like Azumarill. It is kind of like Zygarde, just so good with a choice band, but could do a lot of other things too. Not quite as well as Zygarde, but it can do some really nice things. For example, it's one of the best Charizard X counters in the entire game. And with the Z Plus move, the Z Plus means support Z moves other than Omni boosting or evasion boosting. That means I'm allowed to use Z Belly Drum on this thing, which is very threatening, and every team has to prepare for that. So next we have my Nihilego. I really wanted to get Nihilego because I think it's an excellent draft format Pokemon because it has so many coverage moves, as well as 2 very nice hazards and rocks and toxic spikes. It's a grounded poison, suck up toxic spikes, a nice speed tier at base 103, and Beast Boost is such a good ability, as I'll kind of demonstrate later on in my battles. And next we went with Klefki. I needed a steel type. I already have a fairy type, but I just really needed a steel type, and I wanted spikes for this team. Spikes are really nice with things like Zygarde and Azumarill, nice priority users. And my team isn't that fast, so to have a nice Thunder Wave, a priority Thunder Wave Pokemon on my team could definitely come in handy, because I already do have Thundurus, so I have two priority Thunder Wave Pokemon, but it doesn't force me to run Thunder Wave on, you know, both of them necessarily, which is nice. I could run it on one and not the other, or if I don't want to bring one, I could just, you know, run it on one and not the other, or I could just run it on both and spam Thunder Wave because it's a broken move. So next we have Delmise. I really like Delmise in the format because it's pretty predictable. It's kind of like Donphan for me for last generation, where I just kind of picked it all the time and used pretty similar sets, but it just works pretty efficiently against most teams, even when you know kind of what's coming. So that is pretty cool. Delmise is kind of similar in that regard, but it is really, really strong, and its typing is a little bit better than Donphan's, I would have to say. So Delmise is cool, and a grass typing is really nice here because it resists a lot of the things my team kind of needs it to, as well as having a nice ground resist, which is always pretty important because I didn't want my Thundurus to be my only ground immunity, because Thundurus kind of loses to ground types. So that is nice there. Then next we have the Volcarona, something I really wanted to try in the format as well because it is a monster threat. It is something that every team has to really prepare for, and it's something that you don't even have to bring that often because people are just preparing for it, and it kind of helps your matchup with your other Pokemon that aren't Volcarona. So that's cool, and it is also so good with Z moves. It's so scary after +1, and even without +1, it could run some other sets like Specs, which is pretty cool, or just kind of like 4-tag Z move, Tailwind Z move. It's definitely an interesting Pokemon, and it really affects the way opponents have to prep, which is really nice against a team like mine. Then next we have Stoutland. I was pretty confident I would get this because everyone else with what's it called? Everyone else with Sand users either had like Excadrill or no one was even picking up Gigalith or anything like that. So I had a good feeling I'd get Stoutland at this point in time, which is really nice because Stoutland is a great normal type. It can actually run a decent amount of sets despite people just labeling it as the Sand Rush Sweeper. It is very good at that role as well, but it can do a lot of other things because it is a normal type with really solid stats all around, nice coverage, and a great ability in Intimidate. And then finally, we have one of my favorite Pokemon in the format, Mega Gallade. I got this thing round 11. This is crazy. That I was going to get it round 10, but Kyle and Shroom were the only people that didn't have Megas left, and they had told me that they weren't going to pick Mega Gallade, so I made sure I got that Stoutland first, and then I got Gallade last. Gallade, I keep telling everyone, is probably a top 3 Mega in the format, if not very close. It is so useful. It could just do so many things so well that it's hard not to bring it to a match because it always finds, if you could be creative with it, it will always find a way to be useful in a match unless you get like caught off guard or something like that. It is a great Pokemon with its awesome speed, bulk, and power, and then just ridiculous array of moves that it could use, whether it's coverage moves or setup moves or support moves. It really is an absolutely amazing Pokemon in the format. So this is probably the best team I've ever drafted. It's not I completely skipped Necrozma, and probably for good reason. This is probably the best team I've ever drafted, but if there's one thing I kind of regret was picking the Necrozma. I think something like, I don't know, maybe Slowbro or something like that could have been better over Necrozma. I kind of wanted a bulky Psychic in this position, maybe even Reuniclus, because I don't think it had been picked at this point. Yeah, Reuniclus would have been awesome on my team. But I really wanted to try Necrozma because I know for a fact that it was way overhyped earlier on in the format, but I did think that it had a lot of potential. But overall, just like looking at a lot of these matchups, it really did not fit as well as my other Pokemon. Not to say that it didn't do well against some of these teams, but it just was kind of hard. I really needed to bring like very, very highly customized sets plus a lot of support to really get it to work, which I don't like on this type of team that could really just break things down and have a nice solid game plan and not have to rely on doing these crazy things and going out of my way to support just one Pokemon. I think something like Reuniclus or, like I said, Slowbro would have been a lot better for my team. But like I said, I do think Necrozma can be good. But without further ado, I don't want to waste your time any longer. We will get into these battles because there's actually a lot of them. There's 7. So first we have a battle against Makati, who is a really solid player. I've known him from being an analyst in the GBA, and he's actually a pretty good player, and he's got a scary team. This matchup is very volatile. It's like one of those matchups where my team could do a lot of damage to his, and his team could do a ton of damage to mine. So, without further ado, I'm definitely going to lead with the Glade here because it matches up well against everything except for the Crobat. So I lead with the Glade as he leads with Thunderous. Now, he may be Scarfed, but either way, I'm just going to go right for an Ice Punch because I can easily take a hit. As he goes to Superior, which is kind of nice because that does a ton of damage. Close Combat would have been nice because then I would have been able to pick him off a Shadow Sneak. But unfortunately, I wasn't going to go for Close Combat with my Glade on his Thunderous. Predicting Cobalion or something like that. Like, it was kind of risky, and I just really didn't need to, I felt, because Glade pretty much beats Cobalion anyway, so I was fine with that, especially because I was able to knock out his Superior here after he does knock me out with the Leaf, or after he does get off a Leaf Storm. So that is cool because now my Zygarde has no switch-ins on his team, unless he's like really, really fat Manaphy, which either way can get 3-hit KO'd, so it's not a safe switch-in. So here I go into my my Tyranitar on his Crobat, and he crits me with the U-turn. So that is kind of unfortunate, as here I go right into my Azumarill on the Mamoswine. I have a ton of physical defense on this Azumarill, so I know I could come in, and I am banded. I'm banded, but I have a lot of physical defense, so I'm not max attack. So here I am going to just go right for the Aqua Jet here, and he's gonna switch out and go into his Cobalion here. So that's kind of nice, as I get the Aqua Jet damage off here, and I can go right into Zygarde, as there's not much he can do unless he predicts HP Ice on my Zygarde, as he goes right for the Toxic, which makes sense because I could go into Glade here. I can go into Delmice here, predicting the Rock, so I can get my Spinner in, and if he Toxics me, that means he just pretty much can spam rocks, as I'm being worn down by Toxic. So that was a good play on his part, but I do go right into my Zygarde, as here I could just click Banded 1,000 Arrows, as I do just that, and he does reveal to be faster than me and have the HP Ice, but that does not do that much because Zygarde is so fat, and the 1,000 Arrows does knock him right out. So here he goes into his Manaphy, and I'm going to save this because this Banded Extreme Speed is really nice. As I go into the Manaphy, I go into Delmice, I keep doing that, as he goes for Ice Beam. I'm Assault Vest Delmice with a little bit of attack and adamant nature, but mostly Spadef, and that damage to me reveals that he is probably like a timid max speed Manaphy. So here I am just going to go right for the Power Whip because I do not want to play around with this thing. I am in range where a +3 Tail Glow Ice Beam will probably knock me out, and if he is Z Sub-Zero Slammer, then he would knock me out. But Z Sub-Zero Slammer cannot knock me out from this range without a boost, so I'm definitely just going to go for the Power Whip here and hope that I hit. Because if he goes into anything else, Crobat can take it decently well, but I'm just not that afraid of the Crobat, and I can get something else in that can pressure his team. So here it goes right for the Tail Glow here, hoping that I would go for like Shadow Claw, predicting something like the Crobat to come in. Definitely a risky play on his part, but if he did just catch me trying to make a middle ground play, it could have definitely paid off big for him. But thankfully I do go for the Power Whip and I hit, which knocks his Manaphy right out, as now he goes into his Mamoswine and goes for the Icicle Crash. As I'm looking pretty good right now, I am just able to go right into my Azumarill here and click Aqua Jet. As he goes into his Thunderous, I'm going to be able to 2-hit KO this Thunderous and then switch into my T-Tar right after this to get the Sand back up, so my Stoutland will be able to clean up the game, as he goes right for the Brave Bird here. And now I'm just going to click Stone Edge, as that will put Mamoswine in guaranteed range of a return from Stoutland. I am not Choice Banded. I'm Silk Scarf with Superpower for a potential Cobalion, so I'm able to just come in. He gets some Ice Shard damage off. That must be like Adamant Life Orb because Stoutland's bulky and that did a lot. So here I'm able to knock it out with the return, as here he goes into Crobat, and he actually reveals to be Scarf Crobat. But I am able to tank that because Stoutland, like I said, is fat, and the Silk Scarf Adamant return is able to knock him out. So we pick up a 4-0 victory against Makati, who is a very solid player with a scary team. So that is a really nice game one for us. And here next, we are up against Shroom Raver. Let me switch sides and reset this. So he brought a lot of things I wasn't expecting. He had things like Victini, Rotom Wash, but he brought like a lot of the things that I really wasn't expecting as much. I was kind of expecting the Mega Autonote because it is a decent Gallade check, but regardless, here you're going to see in this game, I actually make a really silly error in building, because I just built it the night before, and I was actually really getting into it, but I guess I just made a really silly mistake. putting one wrong move that it really ends up kind of costing me a little bit. But this is kind of what having a good team will do for you, so I'll show you. He goes into Roserade as I lead with my Tyranitar. I just want to get my Stealth Rocks up. I know he has the sleep. He may have the Sleep Powder, but either way, I'm going to go for my Rocks because he can't knock me out with anything. So, unfortunately, he does have the Sleep Powder. And I'm not going to be able to get my Rocks up here, as I'm just going to kind of be forced to go into my Delmise here because he could just kind of fire off free attacks. And I take that pretty well, as once again, I am Assault Vested. So here, I am just going to go right for the Anchor Shot as he goes right into Audino, and now he's trapped, and he has to first turn Mega. So that, he didn't really have switches to Delmise, so I see why he would go Audino, but that, I guess, was somewhat of a misplay on his part, because now he's forced to Mega. He can't not first turn Mega, and now when he Mega Evolves, he goes for the Wish, hoping that he'd be able to take this hit, but no, unfortunately, he just barely lives, and the sand does knock him out, so... Delmise is a really strong Pokemon. I'm hardly invested in attack, and that's how much it does. So here, I forgot the Wish mechanics. Like, I thought that the Wish would have healed him up at the end of that turn, so I thought this Wish was nullified, and I make a misplay here by staying in and going for the Anchor Shot here, as it does do a lot, but he goes right back up to full, and he's actually Rocky Helmet, which is interesting. Definitely to check my Azumarill, as now my Delmise is really, really worn down. So that hidden power is super effective, which means it could be fire, ice, ghost, dark, but flying even. But what's it called? In my head, it was fire because I was just thinking like, okay, like he can't touch Klefki. I really wasn't thinking too sharply right now. So you're gonna see how that ends up affecting me as I just let my Delmise go down here. There's no reason to keep it in. As here I go right into Thundurus, and he makes a really good play. Here I'm expecting either Donphan or staying in with Roserade, because like a Psychic from here, unless it's Z Psychic, will not be able to knock out Roserade. But I actually have Z Fly on this Thundurus because Mixed Thundurus is really good against his team, and even something like Donphan will take, unless he's fully physically defensive, will take over half from a Z Flying, which is really nice. And I'm not even max attack. And he predicts that and goes right into his Lycanroc, which could actually take this hit and then outspeed me afterwards, as I do over 70%, showing how broken Z moves are. But now here I'm kind of forced out, which is pretty scary. I go right into my Zygarde, knowing that this can't do too much to me, which is nice. And he actually goes right for the Accelerock, as maybe he's not faster than me. Maybe he's Adamant or something. Or maybe he just doesn't have Stone Edge. So here I go into my Zygarde, and I'm like, you know what? This Zygarde may just win right now. And then I realize I have a wrong move on this set. So Spadef Zygarde is really nice against his team because I could set up on a lot, and I'm Spadef, Rest Talk, Dragon Dance, Thousand Arrows, because his only ground resist is Heracross, which is not very bulky on the physical side and gets worn down pretty easily, especially when I'm boosting attack. So with this set, I can set up on a lot of his Pokemon, and I can also, heal up with the Rest Talk, and I only have, one attacking move that I can reliably spam and not have to worry about predicting or anything like that. So I could potentially win right here because this Zygarde is really bulky. Like, I have a ton of special defense on this set and bulk. So I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Then I realize I have Coil on this set, which sucks because I literally EV'd the speed on the Zygarde to outspeed a Scarf Keldeo at +2, I believe. Yeah, +2. And I can't even do that because I have Coil and no extreme speed. So all of a sudden this set is not nearly as useful. So I go for the Coil because I don't really have much else I could do. As he actually goes right for the Z move, and he goes for the Black Hole Eclipse, which is probably Z Crunch. And that does a decent chunk, but still Zygarde is so fat. So here I go for the Coil, and he's like, oh boy. As here I go right for the 1,000 Arrows, just in case he wants to switch out into something else. Realizing that, I don't have Dragon Dance here. If I had Dragon Dance, I could easily go for another one and be in a good spot. But he goes right out into his Roserade. And now I have a good amount of speed on this thing, or a decent amount of speed. So I'm thinking this Roserade, number one, won't be able to knock me out with a Giga Drain. And number two, is probably defensive for the Azu, so maybe I'll outspeed it here. And I didn't even consider for a second that his Hidden Power against my Delmise could have been Hidden Power Ice, which was just a total, brain fart on my end. So Really bad misplay on my part. Just was really kind of all over the place for this game, as I just stay in without going right into T-Tar to scout, as his side guard still could have been useful, and I go right down to the hidden power ice. As now I'm forced back into Thunderous, as I'm just going to go right for the Thunderbolt, as it does knock out Roserade from this range. And now he goes back into Lycan Rock. I kind of wanted to stay in case Stellar Rock was his only move to hit me, because it cannot knock me out from here. I know that for a fact. So, regardless, just in case he was playing it safe before, I go into my Tyranitar, because I really can't risk the Stone Edge here. And now I know he's going to have the Brick Break, so I go into my Gallade here, knowing that I could take any hit from this, any 2 hits from this thing. Especially because he used his Black Hole Eclipse Z move, as now I am able to just go right for the Drain Punch, I believe. As he goes for the Crunch, does a decent little chunk. Actually, no, I go for the Ice Punch. I'm not sure if I have Drain Punch on this set, as that would have been kind of nice if he went into Donphan, because if he was not, I believe if he wasn't physically defensive, that would 2-hit KO. So here he goes into Heracross, which tells me that he may be Scarfed, as I'm just going to switch in my Tyranitar and sack this off, as he does get the Moxie boost here, which tells me there's a good chance he's Scarfed. So here, I go right into Azumarill, because even if he's not Scarfed, there should not be a move that he has that can knock out Azumarill from here. So I am just going to be able to go into Azumarill and click Play Rough right now, as he actually goes right into Keldeo, and we miss, which is kind of unfortunate, because depending on this Keldeo set, even if he is Roselli Berry, it's still a roll, like 50% roll for him to go down to Play Rough, unless he's running a ton of physical defense. As here, he goes for the Scald, he gets a crit, but no burn, and we actually do crit him through the Roselli Berry, which guarantees our knockout of him with the Play Rough. So that was that was clutch, because it would have been the same. It would have been the same scenario had he lived the Play Rough the first time through the Roselli Berry. It would have been the same scenario as long as I hit my second one. But the fact that I didn't hit my first one means that there's a decent chance he lives that Play Rough and is able to fire off another Scald, which could potentially burn me, because the crit wasn't such a big deal, but actually it kind of was, but I'll explain in a little bit. But the burn, if he burned me, that would have been much worse. So here he sends in his Donphan, as I'm going to switch out into my Thunderous here, as I figured maybe he'd go for Gunk Shot, but I knew he wouldn't go for Stone Edge. That just wouldn't make a lot of sense, as my Azumarill would just be able to get a Play Rough off, and then I'd be able to switch into something like Gallade and clean up the game with Thunderous plus Azumarill's Banded Aqua Jet. Or just, yeah, so never mind. Sorry about that. As here I go for the Superpower, as he actually risks his Heracross, knowing that I have Fly. If he switched out and I go for Fly, then he has to switch back out into Donphan, and he literally gains no ground, and I'm in a better spot to be able to knock him out with a weaker move. So here I go for the Superpower just to get some damage on that Donphan and put him in range of an Aqua Jet. But he actually goes into Heracross here, risking that, which was kind of crazy. So here I just stay in as he goes for the Mega Horn, as now I know my Azumarill could come in and just click Banded Aqua Tail and knock this thing clean out, knowing that the Mega Horn at +1 could not KO me from there. And now here, it kind of depends. It depends on his set. If he is, because I'm a really fast Azumarill, so if he, if he was a physically defensive set, then there was a chance that, if he was a really fast set, there would be a chance that, I'm trying to think, what was it? I think I pretty much lost if he was a really fast Donphan and he won a speed tie or something, because I think I was Adamant Max Speed Azumarill. So if he was Adamant Max Speed, or if he was Jolly, then I think he actually had a decent chance to win, unless I think my Gallade had Drain Punch, and there was a chance that Drain Punch plus Ice Punch could knock him out, and Jolly Earthquake wouldn't be able to knock out my Gallade, because I calced the damage from Gunk Shot on my Thunderous, and it revealed to me that he did not have a lot of attack investment, so I think there was still a chance my Gallade could win, but overall I just needed to hope for him not to be a fast Donphan, which he is not. He's a physically defensive Donphan, and that is going to ensure us the victory here, because even if he has Ice Shard, not even a crit would be able to knock us out from here, because Gallade is pretty bulky. So we pull out that really close win right there. Things would have been a lot easier if I had realized that his Roserade may have been Hidden Power Ice, and especially if I didn't have the wrong move on Zygarde, because then I wouldn't even have to worry about the Roserade's Hidden Power, because I just would have been able to set up to +2 with the Dragon Dances, and if he went into Roserade on that turn, I'd be able to just knock him out with the 1,000 Arrows, and then continue to just kind of run train through his team. But you live and you learn. From then on out, I was a little more careful with my building. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next game. So here we are going against E-Storm, Electric Storm. And he actually has a pretty scary matchup against me because his offense is really good against me. So here, I see that he's got Omastar. And I didn't want to lead Dhelmise because Dhelmise could check a lot of his things defensively. But I was like, you know what? Like, he may lead with that Omastar and try to set up Hazard, so I could just Power Whip first turn. If he goes for a layer of Hazards, he'll be down to his Sturdy or Focus Sash, so I could just go right for the not Sturdy, just Focus Sash, and I can go right for the Rapid Spin. So I'm going to lead with Dhelmise here, as he does lead with the Omastar, which tells me he probably is a lead Hazard set, as he goes right for the Ice Beam and gets the Freeze turn 1, which really, really sucks, because that means he can guarantee get up Hazards here. But for some reason, he goes out into Zapdos here, as I just stay in and try to break out of the Freeze. But because he goes into Zapdos, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go into Tyranitar, because his only hazard removal is either Zapdos or Kartana. I don't think he's going to have it on Kartana, so I could get up rocks and threaten the Zapdos at the same time, making it hard for him to want to defog on me, as he does reveal he's leftovers and not something like Chardy Berry. So here he goes for the Volt Switch, gets a crit there, not too much of a big deal, because my T-Tar is so bulky that this did so little. So here I'm going to switch out and go into Klefki, as he goes right for the Leech Life, and that does very little. As Klefki can do a decent amount to this set, because Buzzwole just is really kind of weak on the special side, so I could go for the Dazzling Gleam. But I'm just going to go right for Spikes here, knowing that he may go Nidoking or Zapdos or something like that. Is here I go into Dhelmise, just kind of sacking it to this Nidoking. But I actually go into my Tyranitar here to get the Sand Up. And no, I realized that this thing was probably Choice Scarf by that damage, and the way he came in on my why is this not stopping? I realized that it may be Choice Scarf, so I go into my Tyranitar, and I know from this range, because I'm Spidef, I could live in Earth Power, so unless he has Superpower, I'm going to go for the Pursuit here, because this Nidoking is one of the few things stopping my Scarf Nihilego from cleaning up his team. So here he goes into Buzzwole, and I go back into my Klefki here, as that is like my only decent switch into that thing, as now I'm going to go right for the Toxic on this Omastar to kind of wear it down, and I am going to spam Spikes of my own, as now I go for one more layer of Spikes, and now because he's so low, I can go for the Dazzling Gleam, and I do crit him, but it was a roll in my favor for me to knock him out. As here he goes into the Nidoking, he has Rocks and Spikes up, and I have Rocks and 3 layers of Spikes up, as he only has 2, so I have tons of layers right now, which is really nice, as I could just sack off my Dhelmise here, and my Nihilego can just totally go in at the right time, as I know he's locked into the Earth Power, as I could just go for Hidden Power Ice with my Thundurus, as I am Z Thundurus. As here I'm going to go for the Nasty Plot, as he actually goes for the Hidden Power Ice with his Zapdos, thinking that maybe he could wall my Thundurus if he's Spidef, but because I am +2 with a Z Psychic, he is going to go down for that. So now, like I just keep saying, my Nihilego is looking so good, as here he goes for the Dragon Claw. I could have switched out into Klefki there, but it just didn't really matter, because even if he is Scarf Kartana here, Klefki plus Necrozma should have it in the bag, as I'm just going to go for the Hidden Power Ice, get the boost, and now he goes into Kartana, and I'm just going to hope that he is not Scarfed here, because I will just win the game if he is not, as he isn't, and I do get the boost, as even if he was Choice Scarfed, I would still win, because I go into Necrozma, and this is the only time I brought Necrozma, and it actually had a really nice matchup, because at +2, I had Rock Polish, Calm Mind, and I had Psychic plus I think Dark Pulse. I can't remember what the other move was, but at +2, I would have I think I was Psychic plus Dark Pulse. At +2, after all these hazards, I would be able to outspeed even Scarf Kartana and knock it out with a Dark Pulse after the hazard damage, and same thing with the Garchomp. So even if he did knock me out with the Kartana there, if he was Scarfed, then Necrozma guaranteed won the game, unless he got like a Leaf Blade crit or something like that, because Necrozma could easily take a Leaf Blade from a Kartana even at +1. So that game was pretty much in the bag for me, as him not being Scarf Kartana just made it a little easier. He's actually Scarf Garchomp, which on Nihilego outspeeds, and I am able to get the Hidden Power Ice and actually sweep with Hidden Power Ice because Beast Boost is such a good ability, as it may not have been able to knock out Kartana if I wasn't at +1. So another 4-0 victory for us, which is pretty nice, as now we are going to move on to a battle against Chime. This was a crazy match. Really, really funny story. I'm not going to tell the whole thing, because in the interest of time, this video may go pretty long. So, basically, he has a pretty solid matchup against me, as I'm really weak to something like Coco. Zardex is a big threat. Starmie is very annoying, because my team gets outsped by it. But, basically, this Volcarona set is one thing that could totally destroy him. So, the set that I have packed for him is Substitute, Quiver Dance, Roost, Z Bug Buzz, with like a good amount of, I can't remember what the speed was exactly, but I think the speed was like 270 something. It was something to like outspeed one of his faster Scarfers, like a Scarf Starmie or Scarf Mienshao. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was definitely an important speed tier. And with the Substitute, I could learn a lot of things and set up on a lot of things. And the Z Bug Buzz is really good against something like, for example, Zardex, because even after Stealth Rocks, even if he's a really bulky Zardex, he will go down to a Z Bug Buzz, which is awesome. So this Volcarona set has a really nice matchup against him if I could play it correctly. But other than that, this matchup is kind of precarious. So I definitely need to be careful, because Chime is a pretty tricky player from what I've seen. And I know, like, I don't know what it was. I think Summer Showdown? No, I think it was March Madness. I think he took 3rd or 4th or something like that in March Madness, which is pretty impressive. So here, I am going to lead right with my Tyranitar, because I want to get these rocks up. These rocks are really important, as I could try to spin block Starmie with Delmise, and he goes right into his Ferrothorn. So here, I'm like, you know what? He's probably going to go for rocks of his own, because I have Volcarona, so here's a perfect chance to go right into Volk and set up a sub. So I go right for the Substitute, and he goes into Porygon 2, as he sees that I have the Swarm. Swarm is really nice on this set, because with Substitute and Roost, I could be going under 33% and having Bug Buzz get boosted by the Swarm, which is really, really useful on a mono Bug Buzz set. So I'm just going to go right for the Quiver Dance here, knowing that he probably can't break my sub after a Quiver Dance, as he goes right into his Tapu Koko. As now I'm just going to fire off a Bug Buzz here. I was tempted to go for Z Bug Buzz, but I really knew I should probably save it for the potential Charizard or something like that. As here I'm going to go for a Bug Buzz, because I'm figuring that he's probably not Scarf. Regular Coco is so good against my team that Scarf would not make a lot of sense. So I would be able to outspeed regular Coco and knock it out with a second Bug Buzz. And if he is Scarf Coco, then he would need something like Brave Bird to even be able to knock, like, to a KO me, either Brave Bird or Wild Charge. So I'm going to be able to scout the move, because if he's Thunderbolt, I could just keep setting up on him. So here I'm going to go right for the Bug Buzz, as that does a lot of damage, as he goes right for the Brave Bird and I outspeed. So that means I know that I am faster, but he actually knocks himself out to the Recoil and Life Orb. So he goes down, as now the Sand goes down, and this is what happened. We played once before this, and I offered him a rematch, because what happened was he went into his Charizard, and I went for the Z Bug Buzz, and he stayed in base form and knocked me out with Flare Blitz. And it's a pretty widely known rule in draft format that you have to Mega Evolve first turn, because it's not like, oh, we're trying to take the skill out of the game, so like there's no 50-50. It has nothing to do with that. The idea is that you draft a Mega Charizard X onto your team. You don't draft Charizard onto your team, because someone else could have a Charizard, and it's supposed to be a type of situation where there's only one of each Pokemon that you could have. It's not like, you know, you could have multiple of each Pokemon, so he could use Charizard one day, and like someone else who has Charizard on their team could use Charizard. No, he needs to use only Mega Charizard X. The only time it could be regular Charizard is in base form, because obviously if you're playing on Wi-Fi where draft, you know, originated, you couldn't enter a battle already Mega'd. So it's a pretty widely known rule for draft format. And this guy Chime was like someone told me that you don't have to Mega first turn for this tournament. And I was like, I don't think that's the case, because I already had that thing with Shroom where he had to Mega Evolve his Audino first turn, and I was able to knock him out with the the anchor shot because he had to evolve and be weak to it. So, I was like, I don't think anyone said that. Like, we can go ask. And he's like, I can't remember who said it, but, like, I thought someone said that. And he goes and asks, and, like, everyone's like, no, you have to Mega Evolve first turn. And he starts, like, whining, saying, oh, are you kidding me? I literally built that team just around, like, non-Mega Evolving Charizard for the Volcarona because it's my only check. And I'm like, it's your only check? So, like, you know, basically then I win the game because if that's your only check and, like, we have to redo and you have to Mega Evolve Charizard, then that means, you know, Volcarona just ends up 6-0ing. And he's like, yeah, that was my only check. And, like, I might as well just forfeit now. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, like, maybe, you know, he's going to forfeit. But I offered the rematch. I was like, you know, if you want to have a rematch, that's fine with me. And he was like, he's like, can I? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, all of a sudden, like, when I started offering the rematch, he's like, well, like, can I not go into Charizard after Tapu Koko goes down? Because there's another check that I had. And I was like, oh, now you have another check to Volcarona? And he's like, oh, yeah, I have something else. And I was like, all right, fine. So he takes like 10 minutes before he challenges me again, which presumably, in my opinion, means that he changed his team up. And then we go back into battle, and he goes into this Hippowdon before going into Charizard, which tells me that he may be AV Hippo. But even if he is AV Hippo, I already eliminated the biggest threat to my team in the Tapu Koko, and my rocks are pretty much up to stay because his Starmie has trouble spinning on Delmise, so his Charizard is greatly weakened, and the rest of my team is pretty threatening to him because I have I can't remember if I don't think it was Banded Azu. I think it was like some type of superpower set. I can't remember exactly what it was. But my Thundurus has a really good matchup against his remaining team, and my Gallade has literally just 1v1s the rest of his team. So I pretty much have this game in the bag, even if this is AV Hippo. But it turns out that I go for the Z Bug Buzz here, because if he's not AV, it will kill, and it does go down. And he starts flipping out, saying that like he didn't have EVs, and I'm just thinking in my head like, dude, you literally took like 10 minutes to challenge me again. It's not my fault that you don't have EVs. Like, I'm really big on giving people rematches, but, like, I don't really believe he's being honest. He said at first he didn't have another check to Volcarona other than non-Mega Charizard, when I think he knew he had to Mega Evolve, and he just didn't last minute because he knew he was going to lose otherwise. And then all of a sudden he has another check in his Hippowdon, and it takes like 10 minutes to challenge me again, and then finally challenges me and doesn't have the EVs, which kind of insinuates that he just built it on the fly, slapped an AV on there, and didn't make sure that he had enough EVs. So I knock out the Hippo, and he's still kind of trying to weasel his way back into getting a rematch, and I was considering it just because I was really confident that I would win this. But then, as you're going to see, because now here he's forced to Mega Evolve with his Charizard, and I could just go right for the substitute here, because if he goes for Flare Blitz, he's in guaranteed range of a Bug Buzz now, as I'm in Swarm range, and he's a little bit weakened from the recoil. But now, all of a sudden, as you're going to see in the chat, as like I kind of start to win, I'm just kind of like whittling down his team. I can go for a sub here, knowing that his P2 probably can't break it, as he goes for the Discharge, and he cannot, as I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. It's just me kind of setting up on him, as, oh, man, I didn't mean to do that. I reset it. Let me go back to where I was, as I'm just kind of setting up, and he's like, this is the ultimate choke, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, you know, I kind of had it anyway, as, and I was just kind of trying to make him feel better, because I did make some building errors in this tournament, as you saw I did with my Zygarde, and even in my first game against Makati, I actually had Shadow Ball on my Delmise over Shadow Claw by accident. So here, all of a sudden, he's just like, I wish I could repeat that, but like it was totally my fault, which it is. And then he's like, and I could have won the game. This is frustrating as hell. And I'm like, could have won the game. Like you don't even know, you haven't seen a single set other than my Tyranitar being bulky Stealth Rocks, which is still healthy, and my Volcarona, which is already like decimated almost half of your team. And like he's like starting to say that he probably would have won this game, and I'm like no, I still had like some things left that could have beaten your team. And he's like, but I could have, and I actually had a pretty good chance of doing that. And I'm like, this is true, sorry. And he's like, whelp in capital letters, and he's literally just being a huge baby at this point because oh, sorry, I have a low battery. Let me put my charger in. Oh yeah, it's okay. I'm back. What's it called? Yeah, so he's like saying that he could have won this game when I literally had so many things left for the rest of his team that did really well against his team. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was banned at Azumarill with superpower, so obviously he's got no switch-ins to that. And like I said, my Gallade just 1v1 his team. I was a taunt, bulk up, I think like Drain Punch, Shadow Sneak Gallade. So I could easily take hits from Starmie, and if I weaken Starmie a little bit, Shadow Sneak could pick it off. And it 1v1's Charizard, it 1v1's Ferrothorn and Porygon 2 very, very easily. As well as I had Thundurus left with Wise Glasses, and I believe like Nasty Plot, Thunderbolt, Focus Blast, which kind of like destroys his team other than Starmie outspeeding it. So I really was in a good spot, and I still had a fully healthy Delmise, which beats the Starmie. So like when he was acting like this, I was like, okay, there's no way I'm giving him a rematch now because he doesn't deserve it. Like he messed up a couple times. I'm pretty sure he's been lying to me this whole time. And now he's complaining when and he's assuming that he would have won when I literally was in like a ridiculously dominant position. That is the type of attitude that I will not tolerate. And I was just like, there's no point in giving this person a rematch, because when I like to give people rematches, or if I want to ask for a rematch, it's because of an integrity. I want this game to contain more skill. I want it to be more of a game of skill than anything else. So when there's a lack of integrity, that is something that bothers me. So we get a nice 6-0 against Chime with Volcarona, and now we go in our last pool game against Gregulator, a very good friend of mine, and he's got a pretty scary team. I was already guaranteed to be the number 1 seed for the my side of the bracket, or my side of like the potential bracket at this point, but I was like, you know what, I would like to go 5-0, that would just be nice, and I get more comfortable with my team. The one thing I really knew that I wasn't that prepared for was like an Acid Armor Reuniclus, but I thought maybe he wouldn't bring it because I'm known to like bring something like bulky, like taunt, bulk up Gallade for things like Reuniclus and shut them down. And also I have a Tyranitar on my team that just could potentially pressure the Reuniclus too much. But unfortunately I don't have the Gallade, and my Tyranitar is not that offensive. I'm pretty sure that I'm a bulky set. I can't remember what the set was exactly, but whatever it was, I can't beat an Acid Armor Reuniclus, so I'm like, oh boy, that is pretty scary. So I'm going to lead with my T-Tars. He leads with his use Aegislash. He's making fun of my nicknames as he goes right for the Seed Bomb, and here I go for the Stone Edge. That's right, I'm an offensive lead Tyranitar, so that is why the Reuniclus is so scary, because I don't even have dark coverage on this T-Tar, and I'm just kind of letting this T-Tar go down right away. As I just get some Stone Edges off on that Celesteela, as now I go right into my Expert Belt Thundurus, which is really nice against this team, and I do get the KO on that. As here he goes right into his use Greninja and his actual Greninja, and I go right into my Tyranitar. I really don't need it much anymore, as he goes right for the Hydro Pump and reveals that he is Life Orb. So he gets some good chip damage off on himself with the Life Orb plus the Sand. As here I go right into my Nihilego, and I am Choice Scarfed, and I go right for the Thunderbolt. Now that damage on the Reuniclus reveals to me that he is fully physically defensive, which is nice to know. As here he goes for the Acid Armor, and he doesn't have leftovers, which also reveals to me he's probably Cobra Berry, so he can set up on Tyranitar. So now I'm just really hoping he's not Calm Mind plus Acid Armor, because if he is Calm Mind plus Acid Armor with Psychic, then he's a god, because then he has to rely on my Tyranitar being knocked out for him to even be able to touch. He wouldn't be able to touch my Tyranitar. So I'm figuring he may be like Toxic, like Acid Armor, Toxic, Recover, because that kind of 1v1s a lot of my team. So I'm really hoping he's that set and not Calm Mind, because now that my T-Tar has gone down, this Reuniclus could literally just like 6-0 me for the most part, unless I kind of like flinch it down or get lucky. So here, I'm going to go for the Thunder Wave, because I know this Reuniclus is going to be a major threat, and paralyzing it is not something that I would want to do and like go for hacks, but it's definitely something that could be important for me. So here, I go right into my Thundurus, as he goes right for the Psychic. I was hoping he would go for like Recover or another Acid Armor. I kind of wanted to see like what his other move was, whether it would be like Toxic or Calm Mind, but unfortunately he does just go right for the Psychic. As here I'm going to go right for the Expert Belt Dark Pulse, And he actually reveals the Cobra Berry here, and he goes right for the recover. But here he knows that he should probably switch out, because if I flinch him or if I get like a crit or something like that, Dark Pulse will knock him out. And either way, it'll do so much to the point where he's in range of like everything else on my team. So he's going to save the Reuniclus because it's definitely the best set against my team. Because with 1 Acid Armor up, it walls things like Azumarill, and I have Banded Zygarde, not set up Zygarde, so it walls that too. As here he goes to use Skyman on his Tapu Bulu as I go for the Dark Pulse. And here I go right into Klefki, as that does so much. I'm a Spadef Klefki, and that could be like a Scarf Bulu basically. That's how strong Bulu is, even on a resisted Pokemon like Klefki, which has decent physical defense. So I believe I go for like another T-Wave here as he goes right into Reuniclus. I just wanted to play it safe, but he makes the good play and goes into Reuniclus, which is really annoying. So here I go right into my Azumarill, because I'm like, you know what? I can go into Azumarill and I can pressure this thing, because he's not going to want to stay in risking Waterfall flinches, because not only can I flinch him with Waterfall, but he could also get paralyzed. So that is a really big threat to him. So I'm going to go right for the Waterfall here, as he actually goes into his Greninja and just barely lives. I think that was like a roll, and he lives, which is annoying because now I kind of need to switch out into my Klefki as he goes right for the Gunk Shot. And now I should be out of range of a Life Orb Hydro Pump, so I just go right for the spikes here, knowing that he will go down to his own Life Orb recoil. But he actually knocks me out, revealing that he's Modest Greninja, which is interesting. So that kind of stunk for me, because that Klefki being around to either Thunder Wave something else, be a sack, or get up another spike would have been kind of nice. As here I go into Zygarde, knowing that his most likely play would be Tapu Bulu, but if I went into Thundurus on his like Scarf Bulu or Gardevoir, I could be in trouble. So I'm like, you know what? He cannot OHKO me here, so I could just stay in with the Zygarde, which is fine, and go right for the Extreme Speed, which had a good chance to knock him out if he was Scarfed. Or just offensive, which I know he's offensive, but I don't know how bulky he is. So I'm able to knock him out with the E-Speed, as here he goes into Reuniclus. As I'm like, okay, this is the threat. As I go right into Azu, as he goes for the Acid Armor. As all I really want to do here is make sure I get him to a point where he has to recover, and I could predict that and go into Thundurus, because that should be able to win me the game. I don't really need hacks here. I just need to force him to recover. So I'm going to go for the Waterfall, and that does very little. Because he's physically defensive and at +2 defense. So I just really kind of need, like I said, to force him to recover. So here I know on this next turn, he will probably want to recover as I get another flinch. And that is definitely helpful, because now that tells me, okay, like he really needs to recover here, because he can't want to risk a crit or a couple more flinches and paralysis. So here I go right into my Thundurus, as I should be able to win this game now, because I could go right for the Dark Pulse, do enough damage to where he's in range of a Scarf Nihilego, because like I said, he is actually physically defensive and not Spadef, which means he is in guaranteed range here of a Sludge Wave. As now he goes into his Gyarados. He should be in range of Sludge Wave, but I didn't want to risk it. I can go into Zygarde here, and I can either get E-Speed damage off, or if he wants to switch, he will be in range of a Sludge Wave after Stealth Rock. So here I can go for the E-Speed, as he goes for the Waterfall and knocks me out, as now Nihilego could definitely carry out this game by just going for Sludge Wave a couple more times and getting these KOs with, even against the used Magearna, his Gardevoir, as the Beast Boost really, really helps ensuring that I kill even a really fat Gardevoir. So that was a really close game, and my lack of prep for that Reuniclus set really almost cost me, but thankfully I was able to kind of wiggle my way around that set and get the 5-0 record for the pools, making us the first seed and one of the few undefeated people in the entire Olympics, which is pretty cool. So with that being said, we will move on to the playoffs, which were actually really, really hype. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are for the Pokemon Draft League Olympics playoffs for the free draft tier. Now, I was really hyped about this match because I got paired up against K2, Kyle, the one who actually started the Draft Olympics tournament. As I'd mentioned before, he really is a great player who's been around the format for a while, and he has a lot of experience, and he's always done well in the leagues he's played in. And one thing I've noticed about Kyle is that he really steps up his game against top players. I've seen him knock off a lot of the top players, which is very impressive in my opinion, but I've never gotten the chance to play him. So he's definitely one of the people on my list that I really wanted a chance to go against. So I was pretty hyped for this because this is another very volatile matchup. It's one of those where his team could really just destroy me. He's got a very threatening team, and my team has some really nice threats to him as well. For example, I'll go over some of my sets really quickly. You don't get to see his whole team here. I showed it earlier when I showed the doc, but he had a Rain Core with like Mega Swampert and Pelipper, and then he's got some crazy scary threats like Z Curum Black, which is one of the best breakers in the game. He's got Sylveon, which is just a solid fairy type. He's got Shaman, which is really annoying for my Zygarde, because Zygarde has a really good matchup against his team otherwise, but Shaman just coming in on like Bandit Thousand Arrows or just, general ground type moves, because my Zygarde isn't a Z-Mon, so it's not even like I could DD up and go for something like Z Outrage to lure it. That's not really an option here, so that is kind of annoying for me because this Shaman is a huge thorn in my side, as it just really comes in on Zygarde and I don't really have too much to punish it, except for one thing, which I'll explain in a little bit. But then he's also got Scolipede and Xurkitree, which are huge threats on their own, but his Speed Pass against my team is terrifying. Like, he didn't bring the Pelipper here, as you could see, but Mega Swampert, even without Rain, is a huge threat to my team if he could Speed Pass from Scolipede, and Xurkitree is just a ridiculous threat to any team, except for maybe with like a Blissey or something with, Speed Pass. So because of this, it is a really volatile matchup, like I was just saying. Basically, I have some major threats to his team, he has some major threats to my team, and it's going to come down to who, either prepped better or who's going to play better, or a combination of both. Now, just to go over some of my sets, I was thinking of running a setup Volcarona in the Rain, which is kind of cool. I mean, like, it depends on if you bring Rain or not, but I would bring, like, a bulkier set with, like, Quiver Dance and Roost, but then actually Fire Coverage still, because Fire Coverage is really good against his team, and Hurricane as the other move, because that hits the rest of his team really, really hard, and in the Rain it'd be perfectly accurate, which would be awesome for Volcarona. So I was considering that, but I decided to go with Choice Specs because I didn't think I could fit Delmise here. It really isn't a great Swampert check because unless it's Yachi Berry, then it's not a good check, and I kind of would need an Assault Vest on it to have a chance to check something like Xurkitree, which the rest of my team can't check too well. So I'd rather just check some of his things offensively rather than defensively. And Delmise, if he brought something like Helmet Skarmory, just easily gets set up on with Hazard. So I just figured Delmise could potentially not be the most useful in this matchup. And Specs Volcarona can actually put in work here, despite not having Hazard removal, as it could come in at least twice with the Stealth Rocks, and it can fire off really powerful attacks against his team. His only fire resist right now is Swampert, which does not really enjoy coming in on Specs Fire Blast, so that is cool. I have a Scarf Tyranitar because that outspeeds his whole team naturally, and it also has Rocks, which means it can get up those Rocks against most of his threats. And it could also, if he wanted to bring Rain, come in on something like Mega Swampert in the Rain, get rid of the Rain, and also get a hit off or get Rocks up or something like that, which could be pretty useful. And if he brought a really hyper-offensive variant of his team, then Tyranitar, Scarf T-Tar is actually really powerful against him. But he did bring a more of a bulky team than I was expecting. And then next we have Bandit Zygarde. I've been bringing this a lot this tournament, but Bandit Zygarde is just really good against him. It pretty much clicks 1,000 arrows in most situations, but I was hoping that he wouldn't bring, like the Pelipper or the Skarmory in. I mean, I figured maybe he'd bring at least Pelipper for the Rain, but like if I can get Rocks up or something like that, Pelipper is not going to be the switch into Zygarde. If he, thinks I may be Bandit, he's definitely going to go into Shaman. So I have the 1,000 arrows and 1,000 waves on Zygarde, because if Shaman wants to come in and it's obvious, or if it's a team like this that doesn't have a ground immunity, then I can go right for the 1,000 waves, trap the Shaman, and go right into Volcarona and punish him with a Specs attack, which could definitely be very helpful for me, because Shaman otherwise just comes in on Zygarde unless I try to predict around it and go for Outrage, which is risky. And I think I didn't even put Outrage on this set because I was like, you know what, Iron Tail is better for Sylveon. I really don't want to get locked into Outrage, and 1,000 arrows and 1,000 waves Extreme Speed do the rest of the job against most of his team. So Thousand Waves could be really nice against this Shaman because there's a very high chance that it's going to be either bulky or bulky and fast with HP Ice, Leech Seed, something like that. Just something that could really counter Banded Zygarde or even DD. So next we have the Mega Gallade. Not actually a great matchup against him. Like, it hits his team pretty hard, but really what I need it for is to lead and kind of prevent hazards in this matchup. I have a Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Drain Punch, Zen Headbutt, Mega Gallade. Just has solid neutral coverage against his team. Hits his team fairly hard, especially if he brings more of an HO variant. But the Will-O-Wisp could definitely be nice because it could lure things like Swampert, Skarmory, Kyurem Black, and Drain Punch and Zen Headbutt with its dual stabs. Like I said, hit his team neutrally for a good amount of damage. And preventing the rocks could be really, really nice. Because like I said, Volcarona is such a big threat to his team that if I could prevent hazards, then it could come in multiple times and really do a lot of damage. So then we have, I'm going to go right to Banded Azumarill here. Banded Azumarill, pretty straightforward. It's just very nice against rain. Shaman is not necessarily a safe switch-in to a Banded Play Rough. So he's also got to be careful because that's his only Zygarde switch-in. So if he kind of loses Shaman, then Zygarde has a lot more of a fun time against his team. So does Tyranitar. And I have the knockoff as well to knock off its item, making it easier to deal with. And in the rain, just Banded attacks from Azumarill, especially Banded Aqua Jet, could be incredibly useful because this Azumarill could take at least one hit from most of his threats and fire back with really powerful moves or potentially pick off things late game like the Swampert or the Xurkitree with Aqua Jet. And then finally we have the Wincon, not a Scarf Nihilego. A really cool set against his team. It is a timid Nihilego with one speed point less, or one speed point more than its special attack, meaning that it still has like 334 special attack, which is high, but just a little bit off of special attack. But we do have the Expert Belt with coverage for pretty much his whole team, and with that spread, it will cause my speed to boost after I get a knockout, as opposed to my special attack, which could be really, really nice, because if this thing gets rolling, then there's nothing he could really do to stop it, especially if I get rocks up. Like, look at his team, and my coverage is Power Gem, Grass Knot, Sludge Wave. Notice how I'm putting, saying the super effective move against each one of the Pokemon I'm running my mouse over. Sludge Wave, this thing just kind of gets hit really hard by both its dual stabs, Power Gem. My other move is Thunderbolt, which is really nice for the Skarmory, but he did not bring that. Doesn't matter. The one thing on his team I couldn't hit super hard is Conkeldurr, but most of my team, except for Tyranitar, could also hit the Conkeldurr really hard. So, if I could wear the Conkeldurr down, or if he doesn't bring it, then this Nihilego just goes nuts. Because, like I said, after rocks, it pretty much OHKOs everything on this team, except for maybe the Xurkitree, because if it's like a really bulky set with Speed Pass, then it probably won't die to just like a unboosted Sludge Wave or anything like that. But Xurkitree can't one-hit KO Nihilego anyway. So, without further ado, we will get into the matchup. Bear with me, guys. I know this has been a long video already, but I just figured I would do it all in one shot because it was just all, one experience, and I felt like it wasn't really worth, because the playoffs is max 2 games, so I figured it wasn't really worth doing either 1 or 2 games separately from the original 5 pool games. So, without further ado, like I said, we'll get into this match. So, he leads with his Swampert, I lead with my Gallade, as I'm going to go right for the Taunt here. I really want to prevent the potential Stealth Rocks, and the way he led makes me think that he may want to go for the Stealth Rocks because he realizes that I have no hazard removal here, and I have a Volcarona. So, he actually does go right for the Earthquake, though, and that damage reveals that he is probably Jolly Max Attack because he got a roll that was lower than anything Adamant Max Attack would do, and Jolly would make sense on his team, as it would outspeed something like Tyranitar without Rain, and he doesn't have Rain here, so that is something that I am potentially expecting. He may not be Jolly Max Speed, but maybe Jolly with enough to outspeed like certain Scarfers, like Nihilego, for example. I'm not sure if Swampert can. I think it can. I'm pretty sure it could outspeed it. Yeah, it absolutely can. So he's probably got like enough speed for a Scarf Nihilego or something like that. So here, the way I took that Earthquake, I'm like, you know what? Will-O-Wisp should, I should almost definitely live another Earthquake if I get the Will-O-Wisp buff here, because I'm at about 37%, and 37 times 2 is 74. So being that his Earthquake only did about 63, 64, means that if I burn him, it should definitely do less than 37. So I'm thinking he's going to stay in here because he stayed in on the first turn, risking the chance that I had Leaf Blade here. If I had Leaf Blade, I didn't lose much by going for it, because even if he goes into Shaman, like, what's the big deal? I could either switch into something like Volcarona, or I could just attack it with a move that hits Shaman harder than Leaf Blade, you know? So I was hoping that he would stay in, being that he didn't switch out this first turn and saw that I went for Taunt. Maybe hoping that, okay, like, now he can't kill me. He has no ground immunity. He doesn't even have a ground resist, so I could just click Earthquake here. But no, he does actually switch out and scout and go into his Shaman, which is a good play on his part. And that kind of stinks for me, because now obviously Shaman has Natural Cure. But it's okay, because I can go into Volcarona, not too big of a deal, because Volk just kind of nukes his team. So I'm just going to click Fire Blast here. I figured he may want to go into Swampert, but that's just kind of risky, because if I do predict it and go Giga Drain or something like that, it's just an easy OHKO. Whereas Kyurem Black does take any one hit from Volcarona. He's probably not expecting me to be Specs, but I am indeed Choice Specs. Now that damage reveals to me that he's at least max HP. He may have some Spit F, but he's at least max HP. My thought process was here, the only things that can kill me from this KB are something like Z Outrage, or Z or Devastating Drake in general, like Dragon Claw would probably kill me too, or Z Fusion Bolt, or Choice Banded Fusion Bolt, or Outrage. But I really didn't think he would want to go for Outrage, because Outrage would, unless it was Z, would make him really vulnerable to Azumarill, which means that Azu just comes in and gets a KO on this thing, which is a really big threat to my team, and I didn't think he'd want to just kind of risk his KB that early, especially if I predict it and go into Azumarill, because that would really kind of screw him over. So I'm figuring here that if he has a move to kill me, then it would be something like Banded Fusion Bolt. And if he does have Banded Fusion Bolt, at least it would be nice for me to learn that now. I don't really have a switch into this thing. I was debating on whether I can go to T-Tar or not, but I was just like, it's not worth it, because Banded Fusion Bolt with 2 KO T-Tar, because he's got the Tailwind up. Even though I'm Scarfed, I wouldn't be able to outspeed him. So I was like, Volcarona is really nice against his team, but something like Nihilego could just go in so well against him that I'm not out of the game just because I'm losing my Volk this early. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to stay in here, because there's a good chance he doesn't have a move that could OHKO me, especially with all that bulk. There's a chance he may be like a Lure Berry set, because Kyurem Black is really good at that, especially against offensive teams like mine. It could run a Berry that resists a certain move that would normally be aimed at it, and then knock out that Pokemon because it's so strong and has such amazing coverage. So I'm going to go for the Fire Blast again as he roosts up, and that does way more. So that tells me that he probably is just max HP. As here, I double into Glade because, or switch out into Glade, because I figured it was kind of a catch-all play. If he does go for an attack that can knock me out, like some type of Z move, Glade is my most expendable mon here. Volcarona without Rocks Up is actually more useful. And if he goes into Swampert here, realizing that I am Specs Volcarona, and that Fire Blast, would be resisted by Swampert, like Swampert gets 3-hit KO'd, but still has 3-hit KO'd. It can come in, potentially dodge one, because Fire Blast isn't an accurate move. So he could just come in and fire off an Earthquake or a Waterfall and do really good damage to my team. So I figured he may want to go into that, and the Tailwind would end this turn, so if I do get Gallade in, that would be kind of nice for me, and I could either fire off a Drain Punch or go for another Will-O-Wisp without losing too much. So he actually roosts up again, which I was kind of surprised of. So here, I go for the Zen Headbutt, because I figure he may be Chople Berry, and if he does want to switch out, like if he isn't Chople Berry, he does want to switch out to something like Sylveon or Scolipede, trying to catch me on a fighting move, I figured Zen Headbutt would do the most, and I figured that with all that bulk, there is a decent chance that he's Chople Berry, because he does not have very good switch-ins to Mega Gallade, especially considering what he brought. So Zen Headbutt has a chance to flinch, so if I flinch him with Zen Headbutt, then that would be clutch, because I would just be able to fire off another attack and keep my Gallade, and also it will do a little bit more damage than Drain Punch, which isn't going to make a necessarily huge difference, but you never know when, like, I'm going to need a little bit more damage on this thing to pick it off with something's priority or a weak move or something like that. So he does just stay in and go for the Dragon Claw, which reveals to me he probably was the Chople set, which I did find out after the game that he was. So here, I go right for the Stealth Rocks as he actually stays in and he roosts. I thought here that he would go into something like Swampert or Shaman, but he actually does just stay in and he roosts up as I go right for the Rocks. So now here, I'm stuck in here with a Scarf Rocks Tyranitar as he's got his Kyurem, and I'm like, oh boy, that's not good. So here, I'm just going to go right into my Volcarona because I outspeed, and I could take any one hit unless it's Outrage, but, excuse me, he just revealed that he had Dragon Claw, so I don't think he's going to have both Dragon Claw and Outrage. So I go right into Volcarona. That still does a ton, which tells me he's probably around Adamant Max Attack. He may have like a little bit of bulk, but he's definitely got like max HP somewhere around there and a lot of defense, or a lot of attack. So here I am just going to fire off another Fire Blast. Thankfully I hit because nothing else would knock out this Kyurem. Like Flamethrower actually wasn't in my favor. I think it was either a roll or it was not going to kill him because he's got so much HP investment on that thing. So I go for the Fire Blast there, and thankfully I do hit 3 Fire Blasts in this game. So now my Valk is really low, but I don't want to stay in and mess around with the Scolipede because it can go right for Protect and shenanigans and whatnot. So I'm like, you know what? If he goes for the sub, he has like I could just kind of spam Extreme Speed and break the sub on anything he's got here, which would definitely be kind of useful. Like, I don't want him to have a sub when he goes into whatever Pokemon he's going to go into. So I'm going to go into Zygarde, and there's a chance here that he just goes right for a move to knock out Volcarona, so he doesn't have to protect or anything like that, because he's probably faster, because he could easily just outspeed my Volcarona with his EVs, and he knows I'm Specs. And yeah, he automatically gets that speed boost. So I didn't think he'd want to go for the substitute and waste 25% for no reason. So I figured he may just go for the attack here, so I can go right into Zygarde, as he does go right for the Rock Slide, which is really nice for me. As here, I'm going to go right for the Extreme Speed, because I really don't want him to mess around with like substitute shenanigans and whatnot. As here, he does just go right into the Swampert. The nice thing is that I did get enough damage on the Scolipede to the point where it cannot come in anymore. The Scolipede is useless. There's no way he could remove these hazards, but he does have a +1 speed Swampert, which, if it is jolly like I was expecting before, will outspeed my Tyranitar and just kind of outspeeds and kills everything on the rest of my team. Thankfully, Azumarill can take a hit from it, though. So here I'm going to go right into my... Actually, I'm going to stay in and I'm going to Extreme Speed this for some more damage, because Zygarde is really nice against him, but I didn't really have a play there. I kind of wanted Volcarona for a sack in the back there. And, what's it called? Azumarill cannot one-hit KO Swampert without the rain up. So I was like, okay, I need to get some damage on this thing so I could put it in range to where I can just one-hit KO this thing with my Azumarill. So here, I am just going to go right for the Play Rough, I believe, because, yeah, Play Rough... Actually, no, I do go right for the Waterfall, because I was really just paranoid of missing. Because if I miss right there, I automatically lost the game. So I did go for the Waterfall, because I figured if he does go Shaman, I'm not totally out of the game. Like, that would be annoying, but I'm not totally out of the game. So he does make the right play and sack his Scolipede there, because his Swampert can still be useful against me, as it could potentially take a hit from Volcarona. It could potentially take a hit from Nihilego and T-Tar as well. And he may have something like Rain Dance, which could be really scary. So he goes into the Circuitry right now, as I can go right into my Tyranitar, because I cannot be 2-hit KO'd by this thing, which is nice. So now here, he goes right for the Thunderbolt. That does a decent amount of damage, but that tells me he's probably like Timid Max, Speed Max, Special Attack, somewhere around there. He may have some bulk, but here, I didn't necessarily misplay, but maybe I should have calced and seen that Stone Edge would put this thing in a range where it would die to Sand in one of the next 2 turns. I figured, I'm like, oh, I could just easily crunch this and then pick it off with Azumarill later, or even Nihilego and just put it in range, which would be nice. But then I'm thinking to myself, okay, he may go for the Z, Hypnosis or Electric Terrain here. So I just wanted to get some safe damage off, because I was like, I should have this in the bag with my Nihilego. So I do go for the Crunch, and he goes for the Z Electric Terrain. So he boosts his power of electric attacks, which is already terrifying, because it's a base 173 special attack Pokemon, and now he's got a boost, 1.5 boost to all those electric moves, and if he knocks something out here, which he probably is going to, he'll get some beast boosts in special attack. So that is crazy. I can no longer live another Thunderbolt from this thing, and I'm going to switch right into my Volcarona here, because I really don't need it. It is just my least useful Mon, and now I am forced to go into Azumarill here, as if that Silk, for example, like I know I have the sand up, but because he's at +1 special attack and as the electric terrain up, that Thunderbolt will do 1,000,000 to my Nihilego. And if he has a lot of special defense on Azumarill, or not Azumarill, on Sylveon, or if he has a Kebia Berry or something like that, and he has something like Psyshock, or if I'm really weakened, he could potentially take a hit and knock it out. And I really kind of need Nihilego to win this game. So I go into my Azumarill and I just click Aqua Jet. The Xurkitree would have gone down to Stealth Rocks anyway, so he might as well have kept it in. As here he goes into the Shaman, and I knew he was going to go for the Tailwind right away, so I go for an Aqua Jet there to get a little bit more chip damage on him and waste a turn of Tailwind. So now here, I am going to switch out into my Tyranitar, get the sand up. I know I could live a Seed Flare from here if he's bulky, and I do just that, but now obviously he is going to be faster than me with the Tailwind. So the best thing here was that I was able to waste a turn of the Tailwind. That was definitely nice, as I'm just going to have to stay in here and go right for a Crunch. As I do that, and he actually goes out into a Swampert. I'm not exactly sure why he went right into Swampert right there, but here, I go in a Nihilego. And the game's over, because I told you the set before. I have Sludge Wave, Power Gem, Grass Knot, and Thunderbolt, but with the Expert Belt and a speed boosting nature. So even if he had something like Scarf Sylveon, or even if he, like, it just doesn't matter what he's got left. There's nothing he could have to outspeed this, because we know that, oh, darn it. There we go. Alright, so we know that his Shaman has leftovers, so that cannot outspeed me. And even if he could live a hit, if I get 2 kills with this thing, it'll outspeed anything under Tailwind anyway. So I do the calc, and Sludge Wave is a guaranteed knockout on this Swampert from here. Like, I know I'm like almost positive that it's Jolly with a lot of speed, and like for Tyranitar, and that it is max attack. So I shouldn't have any real reason to not click Sludge Wave here. But for those of you who know me, I have never made it to the finals of anything in draft format. Like, I always either get haxed or something, wild happens, or mostly hacks. But for whatever reason, I've just always been kept out of these finals games, and I just, paranoia set in, and I was looking at the calcs, and I start putting in max HP and like some Spadef on the Swampert, and then I see that it may be a roll, and I'm like, I mean, he's got no real reason to switch out here, right? Like, what would be the reason to switch out? Even if he does go into something like Sylveon, it takes a little bit of damage, and then I just Sludge Wave kill it the next turn, right? Like, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So I'll just go for Grass Knot here just in case, because if the Sludge Wave doesn't kill, then I'll be just so upset and devastated. So I'll go for the Grass Knot. There's like no downside to this. He goes into his Sylveon, and I get the Grass Knot off. Now that does a lot more damage than it should do to his Sylveon. So I calc it, and I'm like, okay, this is like an offensive Sylveon. I should just be able to knock it out. Like, even if it's Scarf, obviously it can't do any damage to me. Like, Psyshock, well, I mean, Psyshock will do decent damage to me, but I do have the, but like, Sylveon's not that strong, and Nihilego is really frail, but its HP is so high. Like, it's really frail on the physical side, but its HP is so high that I will be able to take a Psyshock. So I'm like, okay, like, he's sending the Sylveon with that damage, it's offensive, so I'll just be able to knock it out with the Sludge Wave here. He goes for a Scarfed Rain Dance, and I crit the Sludge Wave, but that was a guaranteed KO. I'm just like, oh my lord, what did I just do? Did I find a way to throw this in the bag game because I was so paranoid about the Swampert? Like, how could I possibly have done this? I was just like, my heart was pounding. I haven't gotten this nervous for a game in so long, because I don't know. I don't know. It seemed like I was in a position where what could possibly go wrong here, and I had every reason to click Sludge Wave. It wasn't like I didn't know the Swampert set and I had no way of knowing. I was confident that I knew what the Swampert set was. Like, he knew that I was Scarf Tyranitar, and he still passed 1 speed boost to Swampert, which tells me that he probably was enough speed on Swampert to outrun Tyranitar. Because, obviously that is kind of important, so he doesn't have to take another hit from Tyranitar. So, and just outside of the sand, it would be also nice. So the fact that I was pretty sure of his spread, and even so, even with max HP, he still would go down to Sludge Wave. I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's like this really fat set, and he's been getting low rolls or he's been getting high rolls all game. Like, I really don't, I just got way too paranoid, and I clicked Grass Knot when Sludge Wave was a guaranteed win. I get a nice 2-0 sweep with Nihilego, and now all of a sudden I may lose this game. So I'm just like, how does this happen to me? This is obviously my fault, but like, how? So I can go into Azumarill here because he's gonna click Earthquake, and there's nothing he could do that could want to KO Azumarill, which is nice. And then it comes down to a potential 50-50 situation because I could double out into Nihilego and then have a good chance to win because have a guaranteed chance to win if he switches out, because if he goes into Shaman and I go into Nihilego, then I get a guaranteed kill by clicking Sludge Wave, and then if he goes out into Swampert, then Nihilego just beats Shaman, and if he lets Shaman go down, then Azumarill just picks off Swampert. So I'm thinking, but then I'm like, you know what? Like, making the double isn't worth it, because if I go back into Nihilego and he stays in with Swampert, then I definitely lose with just Azumarill versus Shaman and Swampert. So what I have to do here is just click Aqua Jet, because I can click Aqua Jet and he can go into he can go into his Shaman. Let me let this thing go along a little bit, because it's kind of, you have to. I was thinking like 4 turns ahead here. He gets the Earthquake off. It does a lot. Now here, there's 3 rain turns left. I go for the Aqua Jet. As he switches out, and the crit, it doesn't really matter because Aqua Jet can't knock him out from that range anyway. So now here, I can go into Nihilego, and even if he tailwinds, then Nihilego either kills the Shaman or he switches in Swampert, which dies to Sludge Wave, and I pick it off with a priority Aqua Jet. So either that happens, or he goes for like a Seed Flare here as I go into Nihilego, outspeed him, and just waste his rain turns to the point where Nihilego could come in and knock out the Swampert after his last turn of rain, because I could sack my Azumarill, then send Nihilego back in to win the game. So here, I go back into my Nihilego as he goes into Swampert, and there is only, one rain turn left. So because I can't pick off the Shaman with Azumarill's Aqua Jet, I'm going to have to go back into Azumarill. There's nothing he could do here, because if he goes back into Shaman, as I go Azumarill, then I could just go right back into Nihilego, same thing, and the process repeats. And if I go into Azumarill and the rain ends, then I go into Nihilego. Now there is no worry about clicking Sludge Wave here, so I do just that. I don't waste my time clicking Grass Knot, and there's nothing that the Shaman could do against me, because I'd be able to OHKO this thing from full anyway, after the rocks at least. So we do pick up the really, really narrow 1-0 victory against Kyle. That was a crazy match. Really, really good playing on his part. Oh man, that was almost it was a crazy choke on my end. The paranoia really set in, because I don't normally get as nervous for games, just because, like, I don't know, I'm a confident person. Like, I just do the things that I do normally, and it works out well. So I don't have a lot of nerves or uncertainty in my methods. But with this, I was just like, because recently I was in a tournament called GOT, Grand Overseas Tournament, and I lost in the semis when I prepped for so long and had so many mock battles, and seemed like everything was perfectly planned out, and the hacks was just so crazy that I was seeing red. I was so frustrated, because it was like the universe is conspiring against me to make sure that I do not have a chance to go to finals games. Like, it just doesn't matter how well I do, how good my team is, whatever it is, something always happens. So to see that I had this game in the bag, and I let my paranoia get the best of me and almost throw this game, was pretty crazy. Like, wow, that was close. Thankfully, I was able to, cool off and not just kind of choke this away, because when that happened, my first thought was just, you lost. Good game, you threw it. and I was able to sit back and just realize a sequence of plays that did kind of guarantee my victory. So that was a hell of a match. Really, really close. Great to get a chance to play Kyle. Hopefully I'll get to play him again in the future because I just enjoy playing good opponents. And like I said before, he definitely steps up to the plate against some of the top players. As you can see in this match, like, he prepped really well and he played really well, and it definitely paid off. He totally capitalized on potential chokes that I could make, and wow, did that work out in his favor. So that was our semifinals game, and for the first time ever, I know it's not an official league, and I know it's not one of those huge, almost 200-person tournaments, but we are in the finals of something draft league related. So that is pretty hype for me, especially because Olympics is kind of like an all-star league. It's just like a lot of the more well-known players are invited into it, so it's definitely solid competition. So it's not like I'm just kind of walking into a really small league and just beating everyone who's inexperienced. No, it's people that are really experienced, probably more experienced than I am, and overall at a pretty high skill level. So now we will move on to the finals match. As you'll probably recognize this team, this is the same team I faced against Matty for the first game. Now, Matty, I think, went on vacation, and he had Raikkonen take over his team. Now, this squad that he has, like I was saying earlier, it's an incredibly volatile matchup. Like, we have things that could really destroy one another's team, but, like, I don't know. Like, if he really brings the right 6 threats that work well against this team that I have built here, as I brought almost the exact same team as I did the first time, then I could be in for a world of trouble. Now, I did bring almost the exact same team as I did the first time, which is something I don't normally do, but I really went over it in my head, and I was like, this does seem like the safest team against him. Like, it just seems like a pretty solid game plan that has ways to pretty much play around everything that he could do here, except if he brings, like, this exact 6 with certain sets that I really, really don't want to see, then I should have a really good shot. But like I said, he did bring exactly what I was hoping I wouldn't see. He did a really good job at counter-teaming what I brought in the first match. So huge shout-outs to him because this was very good prep. He's got the Matty. He's got the Mega Absol, which is a very big threat to my team because it outspeeds everything naturally. Can carry superpower for things like Tyranitar and Stoutland. Play ref or just generally decent dark coverage for Glade if I'm weakened. He's got the Superior, which is very good and annoying against my team because it doesn't allow Zygarde to spam 1,000 arrows, and it also outspeeds everything naturally on my team and can take hits from certain things, and also kind of prevents Azumarill from spamming Aqua Jet. And then he's got Mamoswine, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, offensive threat to my team. The best thing I have for it is Necrozma, but like it really just loses a lot of momentum against his team, and I didn't think it was worth the bring. So then finally he's got the Mimikyu, which I was surprised he didn't bring the first time because it is so good against me. And even in the mocks that I did for this game, no one brought the Mimikyu. And I was just like, I'm really hoping he's not going to bring it because this thing is so good against this team that I have right here. Like, I could bring a team that is a little bit better against Mimikyu, but I'm really sacrificing some other things. So basically, I have that same Silk Scarf Adamant Stoutland with the superpower in case I really need to hit the Cobalion. And Silk Scarf pretty much 2 KOs everything on his team, especially with the Sand Chip. I have the SD Close Combat Ice Punch Shadow Sneak Mega Gallade. I have a Spadef Smooth Rock Tyranitar with Stealth Rocks, although it is very hard to set up rocks against his team. I have Assault Vest Dhelmise to help me with Manaphy, help me with Superior, and even Thunderous T, which he did not bring. I have the Banded Zygarde, and then I have a really physically defensive Banded Azumarill. Like, I only have like 154 attack EVs or something like that. His Mimikyu, what's it called? Like, if his Mimikyu is Life Orb, I'm expecting it to be Jolly because he should want the Jolly for things like Zygarde, as Zygarde can otherwise easily eat up a Shadow Sneak and knock out with something like Iron Tail. And I'm expecting the Jolly because he doesn't really need the extra power. And this Azumarill can take a +2 Life Orb player up from Mimikyu. And as long as his disguise is busted, I can OHKO it with one of my attacks. So that is kind of crazy to see. Like, that's pretty much all I have from versus Mimikyu. And then also I have Iron Head on the Stoutland. That's another reason I didn't want Choice Band, because getting locked into return could be detrimental because of that Mimikyu. So after his disguise is broken, after rocks, Iron Head I think is a guaranteed KO against Mimikyu. It really isn't very bulky on the physical side. So, like I said, he brought the 6 that I don't want to see. This could be a very tough match if I don't play my cards right. So he leaves with Cobalion, I lead with Gallade. Now, I have no reason to not click Close Combat here. Like, what is his switch in? His fighting resist is Mimikyu. And if I go for something like Will-O-Wisp, on this first turn, Mimikyu is crippled, and that's kind of like his win con against me, or at least one of his win cons. So I really don't lose too much by clicking Close Combat. And if he overpredicts and just stays in with Cobalion, thinking that I won't, I'll either severely damage the Cobalion, or I will knock it out, which is great for Stoutland. So he really does not have a good switch in a Gallade, and I am just going to go right for the Close Combat, as that does just knock out the Cobalion. I do get a crit there, but if he was running a lot of speed on the Cobalion, and he wasn't like max Fizz Def, then the Close Combat was almost definitely going to kill. Like, even if he was max HP, the min was like 98. So that Close Combat was definitely in my favor. And who knows, he may have not have been a bulky one. So, especially because he would want to outspeed things on my team like Nihilego and stuff like that, because he could either Oko them and do a lot of damage with Iron Head and get up rocks against them, and just outspeeding them would be nice for him, as well as Volcarona. He could potentially taunt it and not let it set up, or carry Stone Edge and hit that before it sets up. So here he goes into the Mimikyu. Now, I'm pretty confident that he's going to Swords Dance here. So I'm just going to go right for the Ice Punch, because I know a Shadow Sneak won't kill me, so at least I'll be able to break his disguise if he does go for the Shadow Claw or the Play Rough here, as he does go right for the Swords Dance, which I was expecting. Now, I have Shadow Sneak on this Gallade. Shadow Sneak should do over 50 to this Mimikyu, and even though Gallade is so good against his team and I don't want to sack it off, I need to here, because this Mimikyu could really just run train against my team. The only way Stoutland revenges it is if the sand is up, so that means I need to go into T-Tar and either sack that or sack something else before I even go into Stoutland. So that is not the best course of action for me. So I'm going to go right for the Shadow Sneak here, because that will put it in guaranteed range of Bandit Azumarill's Aqua Jet, depending on his set. And with that damage, it tells me that he's definitely fully offensive. So here I go into Azumarill, and I was considering maybe going for like a Play Rough, because I'm like, okay, he's not even Life Orb, so like I don't have to worry about getting knocked out here, so I could potentially go for Play Rough if he wants to switch out into Serp. But then I'm like, wait, Mimikyu's one of his Z-Mons. If he is Z Never-Ending Nightmare, or even Z Twinkle Tackle, that will knock me out. So I need to go for Aqua Jet here, because yes, Serp is a big threat, but Dhelmise does shut it down decently well. So I am going to go right for the Aqua Jet here, because if he does reveal the Z move, then I am in a very, very deep hole that I probably will not be able to climb myself back out of. So I calc it, Aqua Jet's a guaranteed kill, and I do pick him off with the Aqua Jet. And it does turn out that he was the Z move on the Mimikyu, so that was very, very good that I went for the Aqua Jet and not let my Azumarill go down. So here, he goes into his Manaphy, as I go into my Tyranitar here, as he goes right for Scald. I really don't want to risk Dhelmise just yet, because that is my last-ditch Manaphy counter. Like, it is the only thing that could beat the Dhelmise is a +3 Sub-Zero Slammer from Manaphy. If he's the like Rest Combine set, that could be kind of a problem here, but I do have Roar on this Tyranitar. I do have Bandit Azumarill, which means he needs to burn me to have a chance to beat me. And same thing with Dhelmise, he needs to burn me to have a chance to beat me. So, I am expecting more of an offensive Manaphy, and I do think, like, at this point, I did think there was a good chance that he had the Z move on the Mimikyu, being that he stayed in, because without Life Orb, just a max HP Bandit Azumarill would not have gone down to a +2 Play Rough or Shadow Claw or something like that. So maybe he had Woodhammer. There is a chance that he had Woodhammer, but I wouldn't have gone down to the other two moves, so that kind of told me that there's a good chance he had the Z move there. So, you know, it wasn't definite, but I had a strong feeling that he had the Z move, being that he stayed in with the Mimikyu there when Aqua Jet was kind of likely my play, and he could have gone into Serp. But regardless, he Scalds with his Manaphy. I take that pretty well, but that reveals to me that he is max special attack Manaphy, and I do get some Sand Chip and realize that he does not have leftovers, so I'm kind of afraid of this thing having the Z move too now, because I'm like, okay, I know this thing doesn't have lefties, this could have Z move, but could also have a Rindo Berry, because last time my Dhelmise was the one that knocked it out when he went to set up. It could have a Wakan Berry for my Thunderous. So I am just going to go right for the Rock Slide here, as I can get some damage on this Manaphy, and if he does set up to +3 with the Tail Glow here, I actually live it with Tyranitar with this spread, and I could roar him out, which is crazy. So, and that Rock Slide damage would have been very nice for my Stoutland later on. So I get that Rock Slide off on Mamoswine, which is also very nice, as now this thing is in range of a Stoutland hit, which is cool. So here, I just stay on my Tyranitar. I have no switch into this thing, and T-Tar is my least important Pokemon. I can come in with Stoutland here and put in some work, as I could break his team down and then clean up with the last few on my team. As here he goes into the Serp. That takes that pretty well. Serp is decently bulky and he probably has some investment, but either way I'm going to be able to outspeed him, as I do have the Smooth Rock and the Sand not in that turn. So here he goes into his Absol, and I know he's got the Sucker Punch, but like, I don't really need this Stoutland anymore because it should be outsped by both Manaphy and Absol outside of the Sand, so the only thing it's good for is the Sack. And I don't necessarily want to be playing around with Sacks here, because I don't want to let something like Absol or Manaphy set up on a Sack. So here, I'm just going to stay in and click Return, hope that he does not have the Sucker Punch, but he does. And now I'm able to just go into a Azumarill here. I could go Zygarde and click 1,000 Arrows, but the thing is, he could go into Manaphy and just Ice Beam me from there. But he could also have Ice Beam on this Absol, and I don't know what his investment is. I do have a really good chunk of HP on Zygarde, meaning that I should be able to live the Ice Beam, but it is not guaranteed, and who knows if he crits or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I could just go right into a Azumarill here, click Play Rough, and get a kill here, basically. But he does go for the knockoff, which is smart on his part, because that helps his Manaphy setup. So now I'm just like, this all kind of comes down to whether I can get enough damage on this Manaphy to pick it off with Extreme Speed, and if I can't, it comes down to whether he has the Sub-Zero Slammer at +3 or not, because that is the only way he'll be able to beat my Dhelmise if I weaken him enough, because I won't have to rely on Power Whip. I could go for Shadow Claw. So I'm going to go for the Play Rough. I have to, because I need to get enough damage on this. I calced it. I'm like, I want to put this in range of Zygarde's Extreme Speed, as this Play Rough gets kind of a low roll here. And I'm like, oh no, like, I'm going to go for Aqua Jet here and get a little bit more damage on him, because I'm pretty sure he's going to have the Energy Ball here. And hopefully, after this Aqua Jet, what's it called? Hopefully after this Aqua Jet, he will be in range of a Banded Zygarde Extreme Speed. So I do go for the Aqua Jet, and he knocks me out. And now I go into Zygarde. I do the calc, and the calc is like 33.9 to like 39.6 with this Extreme Speed. And knowing the what's it called, Showdown calc, he's probably not at 37. He's probably closer to 36 or somewhere in between, which means that the roll is in my favor to kill him with Extreme Speed here. So I'm just like, please knock him out with Extreme Speed, because he may have Sub-Zero Slammer, and he may be able to finish off this game with the Manaphy, which would just be devastating, because I played this game perfectly. My building, like I said, it was almost the same team as last time, so that could have been a mistake on my end, because he seemed to counter team it really well, but it really is a good team against him. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, like, yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, bring the exact same thing. No, but like, it really just seemed like the best team to bring against him, that could kind of catch everything he would bring and be prepared for all of it. Aside from kind of like this exact 6 that he brought, I shouldn't have had too much trouble with anything else. But he did bring this exact 6, and not only that, but he played really well up to this point. So I'm just like, wow, like, he is really giving me a run for my money, and I'm playing as best as I can. I hope this Extreme Speed knocks him out. And it doesn't, so I'm just like, oh my god, because now there are 3 things that could potentially happen. He could just Sub-Zero Slammer me, win this game. He could crit me, win this game. And he could freeze me, and I could not unthaw first turn, and he could win this game. So basically, my thought process was, because what I almost did was go into Dhelmise first, and then switch out into Zygarde to bait the Sub-Zero Slammer, and then come into Dhelmise and go for a Power Whip to knock out this Manaphy. But then I thought to myself, he could be a Rindoberry. I don't think he would live from there, but he could be a Rindoberry. And then also, there could be things like him, predicting that switch out, which I wouldn't expect, but it could happen. He could crit me, he could freeze me, and I could miss Power Whip. So those were all things I did not want to risk. I was like, I think there's a really good chance he had the Z move on the Mimikyu, and the roll is in my favor with extreme speed, so I'm going to take my chances there and really hope that he does not have the Sub-Zero Slammer here, or that he does not hacks me on this very last turn. So this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Does Matty Brollic, aka Matty Omega, proud member of the Bullet Punch Club, capture his first championship in a draft league? Yes, he does, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that was down to the wire. Like, Raikkonen really played out of his shoes. Like, I saw him he played against Turk for the semifinals, and he was just like kind of predicting all over him. He really was on top of him and playing out of his mind. This game, he didn't really even predict and play risky, which, like, that's the thing. I was a little afraid that he was going to make these really wild predictions that weren't necessary, and I was going to get caught by some of those plays because his team was really threatening. So if he did some things that really kind of caught me off guard, I could be in trouble. So I was kind of afraid of that happening, because that's kind of what seemed like it happened to Turk. Like, he played really well, but I was just afraid that he would like get prediction happy against me and do some things that I just didn't agree with, and because of that I didn't play around those certain plays because I didn't think he would make them. So I was afraid of that, but no, he played exactly how he needed to really give me as much of a run for money as possible. So I just barely escaped with this first place gold medal, and wow, like, I'm glad that he really made me work for it, because Kyle, that was a crazy close game, but I had that in the bag, and I almost blew it myself. And the rest of the 5 games, like, you know, even with making some mistakes, even with getting hacks here and there, I just kind of breezed right through it and went 5-0 through the pools. So it was nice that, like, I really had to work for this championship and just barely was able to pull it from the skin of my teeth and finally have that first title that I've been waiting for so long. So I know it's not a real league, and it's to many people not a legitimate championship, but like I said, this Olympics thing is kind of like an all-star league. There's really solid competition, and I went right through them all and went 7-0. I mean, not right through them, like, you know, these last 2, these playoff games were really tough, especially this one, but still, like I was saying, it's tough competition, and I was able to overcome that and, you know, not even drop a game, which was something that I'm really proud of, because that's kind of how most of my seasons go. Really consistent, barely dropping games, if any, and then just kind of losing in the playoffs, either blowing it, but more likely just getting hacked out. So to finally be able to capture that championship and break the curse was very relieving for me, because now it just lifted a huge weight off my shoulder. Lately, I've just been a lot more uptight than usual, just really letting my frustration get to me, because, like I always say, I'm just really confident in my abilities and I believe in the best. But it's really frustrating when I feel like I'm playing and doing so well, but I'm losing all the time. Like, not like I'm losing all the time, but these last 4 games I've uploaded to my channel before this episode, I've lost. Like, my last 3 MPL games, my game against Aki for the ITL when I filled in, and then even the, like I was saying, the GOT semifinals when I, like, really seemed like I should have had that game, and I just got hacked so much. It's just been so frustrating, because I don't believe that I deserve to be losing, and yet, like, I don't know. It's been very frustrating, to say the least. So to finally have my hard work and my skill pay off the way I believed it should for a while now, it was definitely relieving, and it just makes me feel like, okay, like, the curse is broken. Now it's not like I could say, oh yeah, I never make championships anymore. I won't be as paranoid if I make it to more like semifinals and whatnot. I just definitely feel more relieved going into the future. Wow, this video has been 2 hours. I am so sorry. I'm really sorry about that, but I just kind of got upload happy with my new laptop, and I kind of wanted to upload this whole thing in one shot. But yeah, that is it. US East, I was able to take home the gold, but it wasn't for the USCs, because what happened was, I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier in the video. That's how long this video was. I'm already forgetting what I said. But the rest of my team dropped out. I'm pretty sure I didn't say it. I had George, Septile MC. I had Mono. I had Kelly under the radar. And then, like I said, Razor Wolf was a sub. And Mono dropped out at first, and Razor took over and got a bronze in the speed draft, which was awesome. So I was like, oh, great job, Razor. You really stepped up. Then Septile MC played like one of his games in his pool, and I think he won. But then he just like totally kind of dropped out. And same thing with Kelly. He also just completely dropped out. So USC only had 2 people actually competing, and one got gold and then one got bronze. So that was pretty cool, but it took us totally out of contention for winning the Olympics, which is a shame because I really think we would have had a good shot. Like, we had a stacked lineup, even with Mono taking a break and having Razor sub in. George, I think, would have made it to the playoffs. I think Kelly would have made it to the playoffs. And if either of them got a medal, or if like they both got a medal, like regardless of whether it was bronze or silver or gold, I think we would have had a decent shot at either winning the whole thing or coming very close. But because I had known they dropped out, this was all about me and the Bullet Punch Club, a good group of buddies that I'm lucky to have met through the Pokemon community that I hang out with on Discord. It's all a bunch of wrestling fans that also are competitive Pokemon players, and we talk about competitive Pokemon and wrestling all the time. And we are going to take over the draft community. It's that simple. We are going to bring home championships to the Bullet Punch Club and take over as a faction against the rest of the Draft League community. So BPC for life, baby. This one was too sweet. Really was. First championship ever. I'm pretty happy about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this ridiculously long video. Really enjoyed using this team. Like I said, it was one of, if not the best teams I've ever drafted. And it just goes to show that when you draft a really, really good team, then sometimes you could become more hacks-proof or like mistake-proof, because I made some mistakes and I was able to, like this Draft League Olympics, it's just kind of funny. Like in the MPL, that game that I played in the ITL and the GOT, actually not necessarily the GOT, sort of the GOT, but I played a lot cleaner, just a lot more on point. My building wasn't necessarily better, but I didn't have any mistakes where I put the wrong move on different Pokemon. Like I've just been playing almost like flawlessly, I would say, in most of my other games. And in these, there were times where I made mistakes. There were times I got hacked. There were times I had made building errors, and I was still able to win all my games because drafting a good team is really, really important, ladies and gentlemen. And I haven't been the best drafter up until recently, but I really think I've kind of got a decent grasp of it now. My MPL team doesn't count because that was purposely a bad team. But other than that, I do think that I've become a pretty good drafter, and it's definitely going to help me as a competitor, because with my skill level playing and my building being the highest, in my opinion, the drafting is only going to make that a lot more effective. So, yeah, that is the end of my spiel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments. I will be uploading a little bit more regularly now because I have this new laptop, and I have some pretty nice ideas for the channel as well as the Toko Minorities channel. So stick around for all that stuff, and have yourselves a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next one later.